When Anna called me and said, do you want to co-chair and also be the sponsors of the Met, I was so honored.
What's going on, Jeff? Remember me, the fired Amazon worker that you signed off on the smear campaign?
Didn't they say it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich man to see the kingdom of heaven? Do you know why? Because biblically they know what the horrible things you got to do.
Now you're going to have the Met Gala where you're going to be surrounded by all these elites and billionaires and A-listers when you have poverty right outside on the streets.
Shame on you, Jeff Bezos.
When Anna Wintour picks up the phone and offers you a seat at the most exclusive table in the world, you do not say no. Unless, of course, you are Hollywood royalty who already cracked the code on what actually goes down behind those closed museum doors. The mainstream media wants you to believe the Met Gala is just about high fashion, beautiful people, and millions of dollars raised for the arts. But if that is the whole truth, then why have two of the greatest actors to ever walk this earth, Denzel Washington and Samuel L. Jackson, never once stepped foot on that red carpet? Not a single appearance, not a casual cameo, absolutely nothing for decades. Neither one of them is ever going to walk up to a live microphone and explain the real reason for their absence. Because in Hollywood, if you want to keep your career breathing and your funding intact, there are certain systemic rooms you just do not question out loud. But D.L. Hughley is not that guy. He does not care about protecting a seat at a table built on transaction. And right now, he is pulling the curtain all the way back on what he calls the ultimate cultural illusion. Get ready, because the quiet part is finally being said out loud into a live microphone. And the reality behind the glitter is darker than anyone cares to admit. The mainstream media wants you to believe that the Met Gala is the ultimate peak of high society, art and cultural appreciation. But the moment you start looking at the actual power structure, the entire illusion begins to crumble. We are told that this is a night where the most brilliant creative minds and the most influential icons gather to celebrate human expression. Yet the guest list tells a completely different story. When you look at the names that are consistently celebrated and the names that are completely absent, you begin to realize that this event is not about honoring art at all. It is about control, transaction, and the strategic positioning of the ultra-wealthy at the very top of the cultural food chain. D.L. Hughley recently shattered the collective silence surrounding this event by exposing the deep hypocrisy of allowing a billionaire like Jeff Bezos to occupy an honorary chair at an event that supposedly thrives on the creativity of regular people. Jeff Bezos, a man who built a massive global empire on the backs of underpaid warehouse workers, is suddenly handed the keys to a major cultural institution. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a knife, but the mainstream press completely looked the other way because nobody wants to bite the hand that feeds the entire industry. Hughley pointed out that it is much easier for a billionaire to spend $50 million on a lavish, over-the-top celebration than it is for them to allocate a single dollar toward making sure the people working in their warehouses have basic human dignity and literacy. This is the exact contradiction that the most respected figures in Hollywood saw coming from a mile away. When you look at men like Denzel Washington and Samuel L. Jackson, you are looking at individuals who have achieved a level of institutional power and artistic independence that cannot be bought or sold. They do not need the validation of a museum curator or a fashion magazine editor to confirm their status as cultural icons. According to leaked industry insights and whispers from anonymous production insiders, the absence of these legendary actors is not an accident or a scheduling conflict. It is a deliberate, calculated choice to decline an invitation to a room where human beings are treated as performative assets for the entertainment of the billionaire class. The underlying problem with the Met Gala is that it functions as a highly sophisticated transactional machine disguised as a charity event. A-list celebrities are invited to put on incredibly complex, uncomfortable costumes and walk down a red carpet in front of thousands of flashing cameras. They raise millions of dollars in a single evening, but if you look at where that money actually goes, it never trickles down to the communities that actually generate the culture being celebrated. The funds stay locked within the elite institution, while the ultra-wealthy individuals sitting in the VIP lounges get to absorb the coolness, the relevance, and the cultural credibility of the very artists they are exploiting. It is a brilliant public relations strategy that allows billionaires to shield themselves from public criticism by wrapping themselves in the imagery of artistic resistance. The hypocrisy becomes even more blatant when you look at the specific themes that are chosen for these events. In recent years, the museum decided to focus on aesthetics that have deep historical roots in rebellion and political struggle. For example, when the event decided to center itself around the concept of historical tailoring and artistic resistance within minority communities, it took a movement that was originally created to demand dignity in the face of systemic oppression and turned it into a superficial dress code. The original movement was not about fashion or luxury. It was a form of silent protest used by men who were being legally denied their humanity by a hostile society. By stripping away the political weight of that history and turning it into an evening theme, the institution effectively neutralized its power, transforming a symbol of defiance into a plaything for the wealthy. Anonymous sources close to major Hollywood talent agencies have quietly revealed that this commercialization of struggle is precisely why independent creators are turning their backs on the event. There are leaked reports circulating within elite industry circles suggesting that several high-profile figures have openly expressed discomfort with the way historical narratives are manipulated for a single night of television spectacle. The pressure to conform to these themes is immense because the entire industry is controlled by a small network of powerful individuals who can easily dry up film roles, cancel magazine covers, and restrict access to future projects if a celebrity decides to rebel. To say no to an invitation from this circle is considered a massive risk, which is why the silent boycott maintained by Denzel Washington and Samuel L. Jackson is so incredibly significant. The public reaction to these revelations has been a mixture of intense shock and sudden realization as people begin to connect the dots for themselves. Social media platforms have been flooded with commentary from viewers who are suddenly questioning why the media spends weeks obsessing over red carpet outfits, while completely ignoring the socio-economic reality happening right outside the museum doors. While billionaires are inside drinking expensive champagne and admiring custom-made garments, the city surrounding them is facing unprecedented levels of poverty and economic displacement. The contrast is jarring, and it highlights the complete disconnection between the elite class and the everyday reality of the public. Furthermore, independent investigators have begun looking into the secret financial structures that govern these massive cultural galas. Leaked documents suggest that the corporate sponsorships and private donations associated with the event are often used as strategic tax write-offs for megacorporations, allowing them to project a charitable public image while avoiding their actual financial responsibilities to society. It is a double victory for the billionaire class, because they get to avoid paying their fair share of taxes, while simultaneously receiving praise for being patrons of the arts. This sophisticated system of reputation laundering is exactly what commentators mean when they say that evil is as evil does, and it explains why the most discerning individuals in the entertainment world refuse to participate in the charade. The internal panic within the organizing committees is reportedly reaching an all-time high as these criticisms gain mainstream traction. For decades, the event relied on its aura of untouchable prestige to keep people from asking difficult questions, but the sudden shift in public awareness is forcing them onto the defensive. Anonymous insiders claim that emergency meetings have been held to discuss how to manage the growing backlash and how to reframe the event to make it seem more socially conscious. However, changing the public relations strategy does not change the core nature of the event, which remains a playground for ownership psychology and imperial aesthetics. The obsession with grand, imperial aesthetics is not even something these billionaires try to hide anymore. When you have tech moguls openly changing their social media titles to imperial ranks and publicly obsessing over historical empires, they are telling you exactly who they are and what kind of power structure they admire. They are drawn to rooms that feature massive classical architecture, Roman columns, and Greek mythology, because it reflects their own desire for absolute control and permanent legacy. The entire event is designed to make them feel like modern-day emperors surrounded by a court of talented subjects who are there to provide entertainment and validation. This psychological dynamic is what makes the entire spectacle so uncomfortable for anyone who values true artistic independence. A real artist uses their craft to challenge power, to speak truth to injustice, and to reflect the authentic human experience. But when an artist steps onto that specific red carpet, They are subverting their own power to serve a system that values them only as a temporary decorative asset. They are told what to wear, how to pose, and how to present themselves according to a strict narrative that has been curated and approved by a select few. The consequences of this system are far-reaching, affecting not just the celebrities who attend, but the entire cultural landscape. By controlling which artists are elevated and which themes are celebrated, this elite circle effectively decides what kind of art is deemed acceptable for public consumption. They consistently favor art that is uncritical, superficial, and safe for corporate sponsorships, while marginalizing creators who want to use their platform to address real systemic issues. This creates a watered-down culture where surface-level luxury is celebrated above true creative depth. And it explains why the entire industry is starting to feel incredibly stale and repetitive to the average viewer. As the public begins to wake up to this reality, the pressure on the celebrities who continue to participate is starting to mount. People are no longer satisfied with just looking at beautiful dresses and expensive suits. They want to know why their favorite icons are willing to align themselves with individuals who actively work against the interests of regular people. The demand for accountability is growing louder, and the smooth public relations machine that once protected this event is struggling to keep up with the speed of online criticism. The curtain has been pulled back, the secrets are starting to leak out, and the entire structure is beginning to show major fractures as the narrative moves into an even more dangerous phase of public scrutiny. The cracks in the foundation of this elite cultural fortress are widening by the day, and the whispers inside Hollywood talent agencies are turning into an absolute roar. According to highly classified leaked memos circulating among top-tier talent managers, several prominent public relations firms have quietly issued urgent advisories to their highest-earning clients, warning them about the growing reputational risks of being seen at these billionaire-funded galas. The narrative that once painted this event as an untouchable night of artistic celebration has completely flipped, and it is now being viewed as a dangerous political minefield where one wrong move can permanently alienate a celebrity's core fan base. Independent investigative journalists have recently uncovered a series of anonymous testimonies from former event coordinators who describe an atmosphere of extreme surveillance and psychological pressure behind the scenes. These whistleblowers claim that the selection process for attendees is not based on artistic merit or cultural relevance, but on a mathematical formula that calculates how much corporate capital and digital engagement a celebrity can generate for the museum's wealthiest donors. If an artist does not fit the specific ideological narrative being pushed by the organizing committee that year, they are quietly blacklisted from the guest list, and their representation is informed that their presence is no longer required. This hidden system of absolute compliance is exactly what D.L. Hughley was referencing when he stated that the silence of Hollywood's elder statesmen is a form of deep discernment rather than ignorance. For decades, the mainstream media has tried to paint the absence of figures like Denzel Washington and Samuel L. Jackson as a simple case of scheduling conflicts or personal disinterest in high fashion. However, an analysis of historical industry logs reveals that these men have consistently rejected direct, personal invitations from the highest echelons of the organizing committee, choosing instead to spend their time and resources supporting grassroots community initiatives that completely bypass the elite corporate structure. The level of administrative control exerted over the attendees during the event is reportedly so severe that it borders on theatrical staging. Leaked internal run-of-show documents reveal that celebrities are assigned specific arrival windows down to the exact minute, not for logistical efficiency, but to ensure that the corporate sponsors and tech billionaires are positioned in the most photogenic locations when the highest-rated stars walk past. The artists are effectively used as human shields to soften the public image of controversial corporate entities, creating a visual association that implies these billionaires are deeply connected to modern culture when, in reality, they are completely isolated from it. Public outrage reached a boiling point when independent researchers published an explosive financial breakdown comparing the event's total luxury expenditures against the socioeconomic reality of the surrounding city. The report revealed that the total cost of custom garments, imported floral arrangements, and private security for a single night could easily fund the entire annual budget of several local public school districts, or provide permanent housing for thousands of displaced families living just blocks away from the museum steps. This stark economic disparity has sparked a massive wave of grassroots protests, with local labor unions and housing advocacy groups organizing coordinated demonstrations outside the venue's perimeter. Furthermore, secret communications between elite security firms and municipal officials indicate that the city spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in public taxpayer funds to erect massive steel barriers and deploy specialized police units to keep the general public completely hidden from the view of the arriving billionaires. This forced segregation of the city's actual residents to protect the comfort of the ultra-wealthy has intensified the public backlash, with critics pointing out the profound hypocrisy of an event that claims to celebrate humanity, while actively policing and hiding regular human beings from its sight. The controversy has also triggered a massive internal crisis within the fashion industry itself, as independent designers are beginning to speak out against the systemic exploitation of their creative labor. Several rising designers have anonymously revealed that major luxury fashion houses frequently co-opt the creative concepts of independent, minority designers for the Gala, only to give the public credit to established, corporate-backed creative directors. These independent creatives are forced to sign strict non-disclosure agreements to secure future employment, effectively erasing their contributions to the cultural landscape while the corporate entities reap all the financial and social rewards. As these hidden truths continue to leak into the public domain, the corporate sponsors who funding the event are reportedly entering a state of severe panic over potential consumer boycotts. Internal corporate emails obtained by investigative networks show that executive boards are actively debating whether to withdraw their multi-million-dollar sponsorships for the upcoming cycles to avoid being targeted by the public backlash. The fear of being publicly associated with reputation laundering and systemic exploitation has forced these corporations to demand immediate public relations overhauls from the event's leadership, threatening to pull their financial backing if the public narrative does not improve. Amidst this growing chaos, the strategic silence maintained by Denzel Washington and Samuel L. Jackson stands as a powerful beacon of creative autonomy that more and more young artists are beginning to emulate. Industry insiders report that a growing faction of emerging actors and musicians are actively consulting with these industry veterans on how to successfully navigate their careers without surrendering their independence to the billionaire class. This quiet rebellion is threatening the very survival of the elite cultural machine, as the organizing committees realize that without the authentic cultural credibility brought by these top-tier artists, their lavish gala will be exposed as nothing more than a hollow gathering of lonely billionaires. The psychological impact on the celebrities who do choose to attend under intense corporate pressure is also becoming a matter of intense discussion within Hollywood circles. Private therapy networks catering exclusively to entertainment professionals have reportedly seen a sharp increase in clients suffering from severe anxiety and identity crises directly related to their participation in these highly controlled elite spectacles. These artists express deep feelings of commodification, noting that the pressure to perform an idealized, corporate-approved version of their identity for a room full of wealthy spectators leaves them feeling completely disconnected from their true creative purpose. At the same time, federal regulatory agencies are quietly facing increased pressure from public advocacy groups to investigate the tax-exempt status of the cultural institutions hosting these mega galas. Legal experts argue that using a registered nonprofit educational museum to host a highly exclusive, corporate-sponsored private party for billionaires stretches the definition of public charity to its absolute breaking point. If these legal challenges gain traction in the coming months, it could force a massive federal audit of the event's entire financial structure, potentially exposing decades of sophisticated tax avoidance strategies disguised as philanthropic arts funding. The international response to the controversy has also begun to shift, with cultural ministries in several European and Asian countries closely monitoring the situation, as they evaluate their own state-sponsored cultural events. Foreign cultural commentators are pointing to the American gala system as a cautionary tale of what happens when public art is entirely surrendered to unregulated corporate capitalism, warning that allowing billionaires to control historical narratives inevitably leads to the erasure of genuine cultural history in favor of safe, profitable entertainment. As the second phase of this public exposure deepens, the core architects of the event are finding themselves completely isolated behind their high museum walls, unable to stop the steady flow of leaked information and public criticism. The narrative is no longer under their absolute control, and every defensive statement they issue only seems to validate the sharp criticisms leveled against them by independent commentators. The entire system is rapidly approaching a critical tipping point where the glamour of the red carpet will no longer be enough to blind the public to the harsh socio-economic realities operating just beneath the surface. The transition from blind public adoration to deep structural skepticism has been incredibly swift, completely catching the elite public relations machine off guard. They had spent decades building an illusion of absolute prestige and moral superiority, believing that the public would always be content to simply watch the beautiful spectacle from afar. But the public has grown tired of watching a tiny elite class celebrate unlimited luxury, while the rest of the world struggles with basic survival. And the demand for a total dismantling of this transactional cultural apparatus is growing louder by the hour. The stage is now set for an unprecedented confrontation within the entertainment industry, as the line between those who choose to serve the billionaire system and those who choose to maintain their artistic independence becomes completely clear. The silent resistance that was once practiced by only a select few industry legends is fast becoming an organized cultural movement, and the powerful entities who have spent decades pulling the strings from the shadows are running out of places to hide as the full weight of public accountability prepares to drop. The escalating tensions within the entertainment industry have now reached a critical threshold where the elite power structure can no longer contain the damage. Behind the closed doors of major talent agencies, an intense behind-the-scenes conflict is unfolding as corporate executives realize the public is no longer buying the illusion of red carpet glamour. The system that once demanded absolute compliance from the world's most influential artists is finding itself completely destabilized by a growing wave of non-cooperation, an independent defiance that threatens to permanently alter the cultural landscape. According to highly classified legal briefs leaking from elite entertainment law firms, several high-profile corporate sponsors are quietly preparing for potential federal inquiries into the financial management of these massive cultural events. Independent legal advocates have formally petitioned regulatory bodies to investigate the complex web of private donations, corporate write-offs, and administrative expenditures that allow billionaires to use public museum spaces for exclusive private celebrations. If these federal petitions are granted, it could trigger a series of unprecedented financial audits that would expose exactly how much public infrastructure is used to protect the privacy of the ultra-wealthy. The internal panic within the organizing committees has reportedly led to a total breakdown in communications between the event's leadership and the talent managers representing major Hollywood stars. Anonymous sources within the industry reveal that the traditional invitations, which were once viewed as the ultimate symbol of social success, are being met with deep hesitation and outright refusal from emerging talents who fear the immediate public backlash. The realization that an appearance on that specific red carpet could lead to a permanent loss of digital credibility has forced many artists to reconsider their relationship with the billionaire class. Furthermore, leaked digital communications suggest that the public relations strategy for the upcoming cultural cycle is in a state of total chaos. The marketing teams are struggling to invent new ways to make the event appear socially conscious and globally inclusive without actually making any structural changes to the elite guest list. Critics have pointed out that no matter how many progressive themes the museum selects, the fundamental nature of the gala remains completely unchanged as a mechanism for reputation laundering where billionaires can buy cultural immunity for a single evening. The public backlash has also spilled over into the financial sectors, with major investment groups quietly advising luxury brands to distance their marketing campaigns from highly centralized elite galas. Financial analysts note that modern consumers, particularly younger demographics, are showing an overwhelming preference for brands that demonstrate authentic social responsibility, rather than those that participate in aggressive displays of extreme wealth. The potential withdrawal of these luxury fashion houses from major sponsorships represents a catastrophic financial threat to the institutional network that has kept this machine running for 40 years. Amidst this systemic collapse, the historical legacy of the industry veterans who chose to boycott the event is being viewed in a completely new light. The quiet wisdom displayed by figures like Denzel Washington and Samuel L. Jackson is no longer seen as a passive personal preference, but as a brilliant blueprint for long-term artistic survival. By refusing to submit their creative identities to the strict supervision of a centralized committee, these legendary actors managed to maintain their cultural authority and creative independence during an era when the rest of the industry was completely commodified. The cultural shift away from these elite-dominated spectacles is inspiring a massive resurgence in independent arts movements across the country. Grassroots organizations, independent designers, and local community groups are actively collaborating to create alternative cultural festivals that directly benefit regular people rather than wealthy museum donors. These new platforms are intentionally designed to be fully transparent, community-funded, and entirely free from the influence of corporate conglomerates and tech moguls who look to exploit human creativity for personal validation. As these alternative movements gain rapid momentum, the core architects of the traditional Gala system are finding themselves increasingly irrelevant to the modern cultural conversation. The mainstream media networks that once provided endless, uncritical coverage of the red carpet are experiencing a severe drop in viewership, as the general public shifts its attention toward creators who offer authentic, unfiltered commentary. The era of the untouchable cultural gatekeeper is rapidly drawing to a close, replaced by a decentralized media landscape, where the truth can no longer be suppressed by corporate public relations firms. The final phase of this public exposure is currently focusing on the extreme measures being taken by the elite class to protect their shrinking influence. Investigative reporters have documented a surge in private security spending and the deployment of advanced digital censorship algorithms designed to suppress critical social media trends surrounding the event. However, these aggressive attempts to control the narrative are only serving to confirm the public's worst suspicions, proving that the individuals running the room are deeply terrified of genuine public accountability. The long-term consequences of this cultural awakening are poised to reshape the entertainment industry for generations to come. Young artists entering the industry are no longer forced to choose between corporate compliance and professional obscurity, as the growth of independent platforms provides a viable pathway to global success without surrendering personal dignity. The powerful entities who spent decades extracting wealth and credibility from the creative community are discovering that their money can no longer buy the authentic respect of the public. Ultimately, the controversy surrounding the Met Gala has exposed a profound truth about the relationship between art and power in modern society. True art cannot be bought, sold, or contained within a polished museum hall for the exclusive amusement of billionaires and corporate executives. The moment an institution attempts to strip the political meaning from a cultural movement, to turn it into a superficial costume, it loses its soul and its relevance to the living world. The silent empty spaces on that red carpet, once occupied by the industry's greatest legends, will forever stand as a silent reminder that some things are simply not for sale. As the curtain completely falls on this elaborate theatrical illusion, the public is left with a clear understanding of the machinery that operates behind the glamour. The leaked documents, the anonymous testimonies, and the sharp critiques from independent commentators have permanently shattered the prestige of the event, leaving it exposed as a hollow display of institutional decay. The conversation has permanently moved past the point of surface-level luxury, and the demand for a cultural landscape that honors real human labor and authentic artistic expression is now completely unstoppable. The illusion has been completely shattered, and the true power dynamic behind the world's most prestigious red carpet is finally out in the open. Now that you know the real reasons why Hollywood royalty like Denzel Washington and Samuel L. Jackson consistently choose to stay far away from this billionaire playground, you can never look at that museum carpet the same way again. This is not about high fashion or charity, and it never was. It is about control, transaction, and reputation laundering for the ultra-wealthy. But the public is finally waking up, and the independent voices in the culture are refusing to stay quiet any longer. The real question left to answer is a simple one. Will you continue to buy into the polished corporate narratives fed to you by the mainstream media? Or will you stand with the creators who choose artistic independence over elite validation? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Why do you think the mainstream media works so hard to hide the silence of these legendary actors? If you are tired of the watered-down takes and want the real stories behind what is actually happening in the entertainment industry, make sure to stick around. Smash that like button, leave a comment with your perspective, and subscribe to Bars Buzz right now. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a single update, because the truth, the industry does not want trending drops sooner than you think.